Thank you, Jane, for your talk. And thank you, everybody, for being here, either virtually or in person. Before I ask for any questions, that was a wonderful talk. You know, for purposes of recording, Jane was talking about how our minds always make these things to worry about, and the real things that happen are never what we were worried about. And if our mind is clear, then we can deal with them. And if we're just stuck in worry, then we can't deal with them. Is that a good summary of your talk? Yeah. Yeah, you know, this is really true. Like all the times that I've worried about when my husband is late and I've worried about him in a car crash, I never worried that he'd get lymphoma. And all the times that I was late and he'd worried that something had happened to me and I'd been in a car crash, he never imagined that I'd break my hip, you know, a block and a half from our house. You know, so it's really true. Whatever, you know, I always tell him when he worries about me, I say, that's good because whatever you're worried about is not going to happen. So, you know, so I tell myself that too. Whenever I worry about somebody, I say, that means that's not going to happen. Of course, what is going to happen, who knows? And the thing about, you know, the clarity that comes with practice is not that we can necessarily fix what's going on, because sometimes we can't fix it. Stan and I saw the Barbie movie yesterday, and I can't recommend it highly enough, and I think you can't recommend it highly enough either. Is that correct? Yeah, it's a really great movie. Guys, you need to see it. And there's this key moment in the beginning where Barbie's doing her Barbie life, and they're doing the dance, and they're all wearing pink and everything like that. And suddenly she says, have you ever thought about death? And everything stops. Because the point is, one of the things that we need to become comfortable with and accept is that First Noble Truth. Existence is suffering. It's not just life is suffering. Existence is necessarily unsatisfactory. The word we translate as suffering, it's dukkha, which really means unsatisfactory. And so really accepting dukkha and really accepting that we're all going to die, really accepting that clears up a lot of stuff. It really clears up a lot of stuff. And then the stuff, this grabbing onto our own delusion of what we think our existence is. So instead of holding on tightly, it just can open up. And then whatever appears, even if we can't fix it, even if in that moment we actually are dying, or something terrible actually is happening to us. It's not that we don't feel it, we are in nirvana, we are in samadhi. It's not like that. It's like complete. Whatever it is complete. We're completely there. We're not separate. We haven't set ourselves apart. So that's really important, that this complete acceptance. You know, have you ever thought about death? Yes. But my thoughts about it are not what's important. Just accepting this fact. Accepting suffering, understanding our job to alleviate suffering. That's what's important. And then, yeah, the kind of anxious fears, they just get in the way. And we can't see what's actually happening because we have this projection that we're, you know, putting out there. So thank you very much for your talk. Are there any questions? Okay.
The two chants at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
would you talk about what they are and why we do them and why you ask if there's any other names?
Okay, so you're talking about the Jijang Bosal and Kwansen Bosal. So in the beginning of our practice, we read names of people who are in difficult circumstances that people have asked us to chant for. And then we also read names of people who have died. We chant for people who died over a period of 49 days, 7 weeks. So those are the two groups. Kwanseum Bosal chanting is for people who are having difficulties, and usually physical illness, but not always. And Jijang Bosal chanting is for people who have died recently. And Kwanseum Bosal is over there. You can't see very well, but it's a small blue one over there. That's Kwanseum Bosal. And our school is Kwan School of Zen. So this is the Buddha who perceives the sound of the world and is aware of the suffering of the world, and whose being is devoted to alleviating the suffering of the world. So Kwanseum Bosal is often depicted as having 1,000 arms, and in each hand is an eye. So 1,000 eyes and hands. And on Wednesday night, we chant 1,000 eyes and hands sutra, also for Kwanseum Bosal. And Kwanseum Bosal, the Sanskrit name is Avalokiteshvara, so the Heart Sutra starts with Avalokiteshvara. And the Great Dharani, which is the magic mantra, that the long chant that we chant after the English Heart Sutra, the Great Dharani is directed towards Kwanseum Bosal, in Chinese known as Kuan Yin. So people in the West may be more familiar with her as Kuan Yin. And it's often depicted as female, although in the temple painting up there, little tiny mustache, so you know that she's really male. The bodhisattvas are all, they're kind of androgynous, but you're reminded that they're actually guys. Going back to the Barbie movie. So yeah, so that's Kwanseum Bosal. And so we chant for people who are in distress. And if there's someone who is in distress that you want us to chant us for, you can just shoot an email to Kansas Zen Center and at gmail.com, and we'll put them on the list. If you just want, you don't want them on a list permanently, you can say until such and such a date, or you can just ask at practice, can you chant for so-and-so? Then Jijang Bosal is over there. And again, you can't really see the blue painting. So Jijang Bosal is not wearing fuzzy slippers. Those are lotus flowers that and he's definitely he is walking on. And he has this big staff. This is a monk's staff, so when he walks, it jingles, chases away the tigers, seriously. And Jijang Bosal is dedicated to saving beings from hell. So supposedly in his, in one of his, before he became a bodhisattva, somebody died and he went down to hell. Someone close to him, I forget if it was a parent or an aunt or an uncle or somebody, goes down to hell and sees their suffering and says, I will save, dedicates himself to saving all beings from the hell realms. And so Jijang Bosal is the bodhisattva of great vow. So in the homage to the three jewels, they all have epithets. So at one point we have Jijang Bosal is the last, and he's day one is his epithet, great vow. Kwanseum Bosal is day G, is it G? Which is great compassion. And there's also great wisdom, Manjushri, and great action, Samantabhadra. Those are the four great bodhisattvas. And those are the, behind the altar closest to Buddha, those are the four there, but I never can remember which is which. So Jijang Bosal is very interesting because Jijang Bosal is not only the bodhisattva who is dedicated to saving beings in hell, it's also beings in transition. So children, you'll sometimes see Jijang Bosal chanting, Jijang Bosal statues where you have Jijang Bosal, he's always bald. He always has like monk's kind of tonsure. Jijang Bosal, and there'll be children clinging to him. So Jijang Bosal is the bodhisattva for children, pregnant women, that's another kind of transition. Travelers, that's another transition. Dead people, which in Buddhism is transition, because there's this belief in rebirth, which you don't have to believe to practice Buddhism. I don't particularly, but traditionally, and also the Buddhist hells are not permanent. You go in and out of them. Buddhist heavens are the same way. You just go in and out of them. So, and then finally, the one I love, firefighters. So Jijang Bosal is, and Ksitagarbha is the Sanskrit, and Ksitagarbha is great because it means earth womb. So Jijang Bosal is the most masculine in the depictions of the bodhisattvas, but his name means earth womb. So that's very lovely. Anyway, so earth womb bodhisattva. So the bodhisattva who's dedicated to beings in transition. And so when someone dies, we chant Jijang Bosal for them for 49 days. And then at the end of the 49 days, if people want, most people don't, but if you ask for it, we have a 49-day ceremony that we can do. And it's a very, very beautiful ceremony. So those are the two chants that we do in the beginning. And they're actually little snippets from a much longer and more complex chants that we do on Wednesday night. We kind of conflate them. We take the complex chant for Kwansen Bosal, and then we sort of stick the Jijang Bosal chanting in there. So thank you for your question. Yeah. Are there any other questions? Yes. Oh, wait, you needed a microphone.
I was curious. I've heard before in different forms of Zen that koans are
yes.
a very commonly used tool. And I was just curious about rinzai, then that is a tool that is used in rinzai.
Okay, so we are a Korean school. And so basically in China, there were 5 main schools of Chan, and only 2 of them really survived. And one was Saodong, which became Soto in Japan, and the other was Linchi. So Rinzai is the Japanese pronunciation of Linchi. And we are also a Linchi school. So we're like a cousin to Rinzai. So yes, in our tradition, and also in the Rinzai tradition, we do kong-an practice. We call it kong-an, which is the Chinese is kong-an, and the Japanese is koan, and then the Korean is kong-an. So we do kong-an practice. And we do it on Saturday mornings. And we also do it on retreats. And kong-an practice is where you walk into the interview room, and there's a teacher there, and you do a standing bow and a full prostration, and then a standing bow, and then you sit down, and then the teacher says, how are you? How's your practice going? Do you have any questions? It's all very nice. And then the teacher says, and then the teacher asks a question, like, why is the sky blue? Or monk asked Joju, does a dog have Buddha nature? And Joju said, mu, which means no or has not. Does a dog have Buddha nature? And then all the mental habits that we've been encouraged to have since we started talking when we were 2 years old. All the binary thinking, it's black or white, it's hot or cold, it's up or down, it's, whatever. All the categorizations that we make, all the habits of mind that we have created don't work. And it's a very interesting practice. And what happens when you do kong-an practice, it's really frustrating. Am I right? It's really frustrating, right? Okay. Everyone here who's done it, yes, it's really frustrating. And that's part of it, because you learn to deal with that frustration. You get frustrated for like decades when you do kong-ans practice. And then it's just frustration. It doesn't have to control you. You know, our like and our dislike mind, and oh, you want the teacher to like you. Oh, you so want the teacher to approve of you. I remember when I went for my first retreat, and I really expected that, you know, at the end of that retreat, the Zen Master would say, "You are a Zen Master." I really wanted him to approve of me. Needless to say, it didn't happen. So, and then there's the shame that we feel because we didn't get it right. You know, you're not going to get it right most of the time. I'm not going to get it right most of the time. I mean, anybody's not going to get it right most of the time because we're cutting through these patterns that are so deeply ingrained. They started as soon as we opened our mouths and said, cat. Or if you were like our granddaughter, whose first words were verbs, as soon as you said, walk. You know, whatever it was, your first word, that's when it started. And so we have these patterns that are ingrained, and they're ingrained, and they're ingrained. But what they do is they come between us and the universe as it actually is. Because we're just stuck. We think that that's reality. You know, you have the real world, you have the language world. They don't quite touch, but you think they do touch, right? You think they're the same. They're not. It's like we're in Barbie land. We're not in the real world. So kong-ans practice helps you cut through that. And you know, there's this sort of, people talk about, oh, you need to be spontaneous. It's not about being spontaneous. It's about being completely present. Just completely present. And just cutting through all the bullshit that we have not only been fed, but we've fed ourselves, you know, ever since we first started speech. So that's kong-ans practice. And it's very uncomfortable, and that's a big part of it. As I said, you just learn to accept the discomfort. You know, it's a great thing to learn to accept discomfort, and then it doesn't control you. You don't spend your life trying not to be uncomfortable, you know, which is almost as bad as trying to be comfortable. But you just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it, and then outside of that interview room, you find that options appear that you wouldn't have thought of before, because you don't get caught in the traps that are laid for us all the time. We're always setting up situations, we're always in situations where someone has set up the premises in a way that can't ever lead to a good resolution, because the premises are based on a misunderstanding. And we learn to sidestep that, and we learn to cut through it, and we learn to just see what's actually there. So that's kong-ans practice. And it's quite wonderful. But it's also quite frustrating and quite difficult. There's a temple in Japan. You know, in Asia, all the temples traditionally were built of wood. So when you go to a temple that's like 1,000 years old, it's actually not 1,000 years old because it burned and was reconstructed and burned and was reconstructed many times. But in this temple, there's apparently a pillar that the monks, you know, on their way to the interview with the Zen master, you know, had to pass, and they'd grab the pillar, hold on, this doesn't make sense, but that's the story. They'd grab the pillar and hold on, and they'd have to be pulled off the pillar, and their nails would make grooves in the, in the pillar, supposedly. I've never seen it, I don't really believe it, but it's a good story. So yeah, you have to understand, kong-ans interview is not something, oh boy, I'm gonna have a kong-ans interview. But it's like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And it is quite a life-changing experience. So thank you for your question. And we are now out of time. So let's see, let's turn off the recording.